Okay, now, this is wild. This is an emergency alert. There is a growing body of circumstantial evidence to support the hypothesis that indeed the U.S. is looking for a rogue nuclear weapon somewhere on the East Coast. I know how crazy that sounds, and the implications are profound for whoever is attempting to use the nuclear weapon. Whether or not the nuclear weapon gets used, the implications are profound geopolitically, economically. We're talking about markets potentially crashing. We're talking about new wars starting. We're talking about a possible nuclear detonation. This is massive. Now, if you recall last week, the U.S. government contacted yours truly, CanadianPreparedness.com, for 220,000 doses of nuclear radiation prevention medication, ThyroSafe. This is one of the brands that it goes by. And this is for blocking radiation through the thyroid gland. It's a staple of nuclear preparedness emergency kits. They wanted 220,000 doses, and they wanted them by December 21st for some reason. I chalked it up to maybe they wanted it before the end of the fiscal year. It's possible. Is it for continuity of government? It made sense because where it was being shipped to Washington. Could it be related to nuclear power plants, or is it related to dirty bombs and nuclear weapons? Nobody knows, but that's what that stuff is used for. Okay, it's to prevent acute radiation sickness, prevent you from dying if the shit hits the fan. And the government contacted us, little old us, for 220,000 doses. Now, that same day, it just so happened that I was interviewing Stephen Harris, who is a nuclear expert. He's the adjunct author of Nuclear War Survival Skills, which is the most compendious guide to how to survive nuclear war. This book was written during the Cold War, still to this day is the best nuclear war survival skills guide that you're going to find. In fact, a lot of this information, I think, it's like old information that even the government and the scientists forgot about. It's that good. Anyways, he's the adjunct author of the revised version, the 2022 version, which was updated for events going on between Ukraine and Russia. In that interview that we did, which we're going to release this week, he brought something up, and it was purely coincidental because 2 days later, this would be a viral idea. He told me that the most likely scenario that he feared, and this guy lives and breathes, he's rubbed shoulders with people who've built the atomic bomb, okay? He told me that the most likely scenario was that a nuke was going to be smuggled into the United States. Now, yes, this is the basis for books, movies, even a TV show, Jericho, but it's escaped the imagination of the collective in the last couple of years because we've been so fixated on the skies. Nukes being deployed from ICBMs, bombs, things of that nature. But that this was the most likely scenario. Now, that was just, fortuitous, whatever. A couple days later, in the wee hours of the morning, on Sunday morning, probably 1 a.m. or so, I start tweeting about this information, this rabbit hole that I was going down, about nuclear sniffing drones. Because I'm racking my brain, this doesn't make any sense, right? Why are these drones flying at night? It would make no sense. They have their lights on. That makes no sense. So I go down this rabbit hole, and it turns out that indeed there are drones that have the capability to detect nuclear sniffing, just like the technology that's employed on nuclear sniffing planes and at airports and stuff. And you can mount this on drones, okay? And it's more efficient. You can cover large areas, but it has to, usually it's swarm drones because the ability to detect radiation is limited. So you need many of these drones to cover large areas. And so the next day I made that video that I think has about 300,000 views now. And then only an hour or so later, the CEO of a company who makes the drones for the US government comes out and says, yeah, that's the most likely scenario that's going on. That's what's going on. They're looking for a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't think it's sunk in for people exactly what that means, okay? The only other explanation is that this is all just a big contrivance to bring in some sort of new draconian regulations and strip people of the right to use drones. But I don't think that that's it. That does not explain a lot of things. In Donald Trump's comments tonight, the comments that were made by a very prominent talking head for Forbes and CNN, which basically comport exactly what I'm saying here. And there's a lot of other information that I have to share with you guys. It's like, that period, the exposition in the movie where the main character realizes the plot twist. Now, get a load of this. I just want you to remember something. This is not the main, but I just want you to refresh your memory. Remember 2 years ago? Get inside, stay tuned. Everybody was wondering why they were doing some improvised nuclear preparedness strategy public service announcement for New York City. Remember these decontamination procedures for radiation emergencies on New York subways? You probably don't, because it wasn't very popular. You don't remember nuclear detonation and response guidelines, FEMA, March 2023. This is probably one of the more extensive guides with respect to how they're going to manage a limited, benign nuclear disaster, but this could pertain to an all-out nuclear war scenario as well. So it appears as though they were preparing us mentally in a very sort of subtle way so not to trigger panic, because that's the reason why they're not telling. They're going to go by the noble lie. They're going to say that we didn't want to tell the public because it would induce mass panic. Now, Donald Trump let the cat out of the bag, and I don't think a lot of people realize exactly what he said. But they don't want to start a public panic because there are millions of people within this region. And if you have people suspecting that, I don't know if there's going to be a nuclear bomb that goes off today, do you think a lot of people are going to want to go to work? I mean, when you really think about the implications, and that's presuming that there's only one nuke or maybe a few. Now, how the technology works, just so you understand, nuclear weapons do give off radiation. I have the technical explanation here. I don't want to bore you with the details, but just know that there are drones and they can detect a nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons give off radiation. It's a smaller amount because they're encased in such a way that a lot of that radiation is contained within. But if you were trying to smuggle one around, then you could encase it in something, I don't know, I presume, I'm not an expert on this, but I presume some kind of lead or something that would prevent. You don't even need lead. You just need a lot of mass between the nuke and the outside world for it not to be detected. Now, just think about if they are putting up these swarm drones and they're in such numerous amounts that they can't hide it, then that means that there is a very high likelihood that there in fact is some nuclear weapon out there that's gone rogue, that they have intelligence that there's some rogue nuclear weapon out there. Or, as we're going to talk about later, this could be part of the psychological Operation Warfare campaign, but that's more of a conspiracy out there theory. The real question is, why would any terrorist or why would any nation state green light this? I don't think that this is attributable to any nation state. Even Trump doesn't believe that, as you're going to see in his statements in just a moment. North Korea, China, Russia, none of them have a vested interest in setting off a nuke in the United States. It would just be stupid. It would make no sense. A terrorist group, on the other hand, or some group that was trying to incite a civil war or perhaps a war with another country, absolutely they would have motive to do that and try to blame it on someone. The problem is that nuclear materials are very traceable. And that's something else that Stephen Harris said in our interview that we're going to release, is that you can basically determine where it came from, okay, doing an analysis. So if a nuke goes off, they're going to know where it came from unless some elements were stolen from somewhere in an attempt to frame someone. Anyways, now that the cat's out of the bag, do you really think if there is a rogue nuke around that they're going to continue with those plans as intended? Or are they going to go under the radar for a while? So there is a distinct possibility that this thing is going to die down, but it doesn't look like it. Let's get into the Trump statements that he made today. Actually, first, I want to share this with you because, I mean, talk about serendipitous is not the word because it's not positive, but talk about a coincidence. This is Gordon Chang, okay? And he's basically saying that the people need to prepare for war with China. And this is, one of these talking heads. Forbes is well within the orbit of the mainstream media. In fact, I was referred to this video that now has 612,000 views after 11 hours, which for a mainstream media channel nowadays is a lot. So YouTube is pumping this. Get a load of this. They're already setting it up. Okay, just listen to this. This is crazy. In light of what I told you about this stuff, listen to this. This is something you never hear a pundit say on American media and not be challenged by the interviewer.
If the more ominous scenarios are in fact true, then Americans need to prepare for being on their own for quite some time. Because the detonation of a nuclear device on American soil will not only cause panic, but it will cause, at least for some time, an inability of government to take care of people. So people need to be able to have enough food, enough water. They need iodine pills. This is not a conversation that the American people have had for a very, very long time.
You need iodine pills. So he's saying it. They're telling you exactly what I've been telling you. I came to that conclusion that this was nuclear sniffing drones because that was the most logical inference on the basis of the available evidence. And then lo and behold, the next day, the CEO of the company comes out and it goes mega viral and gets, 30 million views on Twitter. So I'm telling you guys, you think I'm pulling this shit out of my ass. As I showed you in that video yesterday, some people think I do this in my garage, okay? Go watch the video we released yesterday. We like to have some fun too, but you can see the studio that we're in. This is an actual studio. It's legit. It's a legit operation. But I have a eclectic, eccentric way of doing things because that's how you got to be a little crazy to figure this shit out. Now, let's hear what Trump has to say. Okay? This blew me away. I actually think that in the next 48 hours, we're going to hear from Biden or someone at that level with respect to what's going on. And I'm going to give you the psychology of why they do that in just a moment.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look.
The government knows what is happening. I mean, that's...
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows, and our president.
He seems very sure that he knows exactly what's going on. Now, what he's about to say next is shocking for people with ears.
It knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out.
It's not the enemy. The government and the military knows what it is. They want to keep people in suspense. The only possible thing is that they're looking for a nuke. Really. I mean, I've analyzed this 50 different ways from Sunday. If there's an alternative explanation that checks all the boxes, please tell me in the comment section below. But wait, there's more.
And if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should.
Because it would cause panic. And I think this is just a different style of governance. Maybe Trump at least projects that he has more confidence in the people to not riot when the shit's about to hit the fan, but
Good, because the people are really, they happen to be over Bedminster. They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster.
He knows what's going on. I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. He doesn't want to go there.
I've decided to cancel my trip.
What? He decided to cancel his trip. Now think about what he's saying here. Now I'm sure that there's some gag or like he's under some NDA thing where he can't tell us he's not the president yet. Okay. But consider the morality of what he's saying. He's saying that he's not willing to travel to that place. I don't know where this place is. I presume that within the vicinity of there, the proximity, there's probably a lot of people. He's saying that those people are screwed, essentially, right? If something happens.
Briefing on the drones?
I don't want to. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
Can you believe that? I mean, just think about that. Why is he canceling his trip? There's only two possible things. Either the drones are the threat, or the drones are looking for a threat. Either way, the US government is not alerting the population about a threat. And in some ways, I can understand why. People would lose their shit. If you're talking about a densely populated region with tens of millions of people, then there's a potential for real pandemonium. So what do you do in a situation like that? I'll tell you what you do. You do exactly what they're doing now. Let's just listen to this final statement and I'll explain.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment on that.
Have you been...
Sure he has. Of course he has. I mean, he just spilled the beans. Loose lips sink ships. Now, why and what are they doing right now with respect to this whole psychological operation? I think what they're trying to do, now that the cat's kind of out of the bag, and if you're a criminal now, I mean, you're going under the radar. You're not going to be detonating those nukes anytime soon. Or if you do it, you're going to want to make doubly sure that, you go undetected. Even still, you need a lot of these drones to cover these huge areas. Like, it's not like they can see from, 10,000 feet in the air. I mean, they have to be relatively close, is the impression I'm under based on the research that I've seen. So you need a lot of these drones scouring, all of the areas. Anyways, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to desensitize people to the idea. It's an age-old psychological tactic. It's called the mere exposure effect. If you expose people to an idea, even if it's an idea which is negative, all you have to do is expose them to it, and their attitudes towards it will gradually become less negative and less hostile and less anxious, to the extent that if you continuously prime people with this narrative that maybe there's nukes, when they do officially have to come out and are forced to, because if they don't, they risk a mass casualty event, and then they have to, of course, then they have to answer for why they didn't evacuate the population, right? So this is, I lost my train of thought there, but so they're trying to psychologically slowly acquiesce people to this idea that this is a possibility. Now, if they were to spill the beans in a few days after this idea has gone viral, and that it has, I'd say 1 in 10 people are aware of it, possibly more, this explanation anyways. The other 50%, they're going to continue to believe that it's UFOs, Project Bluebeam. No matter what you say, you can detonate a nuke and they'll still say, oh, the aliens didn't intervene or they were unsuccessful in their interventions. They'll make up some bullshit, okay? But they know that at some point, they're probably going to have to tell the public what's going on. And so I think that it's going to work out, whether it was intentional or not, that now that people have been exposed to the idea, maybe that's going to mitigate the panic a little bit. There's two ways of looking at this. Either, and this is where we get into the conspiracy speculation, and I'm not saying I'm one way or the other, I'm just trying to share with you all the angles that I see. It's possible that they're trying to mitigate panic, or they're trying to create it. They're trying to create it in the sense that they seem to be encouraging this angst around the issue a little bit. The media, which is very centralized and controlled, if they wanted to, they could completely ignore this issue. That they aren't says something, okay? Now, they could be doing that because they're trying to steer it in the direction of the UFO hypothesis. But when you have something like this go viral, and this guy explains exactly what I just explained to you, and he is not challenged at all by the Forbes interviewer. Okay, so this is a sign that this is what they're getting ready to disclose to us. That there is, in fact, now, I should say that that doesn't mean that there's actually a nuke out there. This is where, it really gets complicated, because just the threat of a nuke out there is an event unto itself. The finding of a nuke before it's detonated is an event of itself. The detonation of a nuke is an event in of itself. All of these scenarios have a corresponding panic and fear that the government can leverage for whatever it wants. If they just say that there's a nuke out there somewhere, they can leverage that somehow. Problem, reaction, solution. If they say they found a nuke, well, that's not exactly going to inspire a lot of confidence. People are still going to be on edge, right? So the question is then, where did the nuke come from? Who are they going to frame for having this rogue nuclear weapon? Where are they going to trace it back to? Okay, but I think the most dangerous territory is either the first one or the third one. Because the first one, they can just make claims that it's from North Korea. Just like this guy, Gordon Chang, is claiming. He basically singles out each and every one of the axis. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all as being somewhat culpable for this possible nuclear weapon that they're looking for. Okay? So he is front-running that whole thing. This is who they're going to frame for it if they don't find anything, or who they could leverage this to frame. That, of course, has implications geopolitically. They can then say, well, we got to do all these things to increase our militarization, or we need to go and intervene more overseas, get into more conflicts. So it has huge implications. And of course, the nuclear incident is the most terrifying one, where a bomb actually goes off. Then all bets are off. We're talking about complete financial collapse, not only because where they're looking for these things is very close to the economic heart of the United States, New York City, right, where the stock exchange is located. But that doesn't really matter, because right now everybody's betting on Uncle Sam. And that is proven when you look at all currencies. The Canadian dollar approaching record lows against the dollar. The Brazil dollar, record lows compared to the dollar. China's treasury bonds, 10-year treasury bonds at the lowest ever. They're pricing in a war, okay? They don't think that China's currency is viable long term. People are divesting from foreign markets. India is another one. India's rupee is down to record lows. So many countries right now, compared to the dollar, are all at record lows. And why does this happen? It happens during times of global crisis, or when a global crisis is imminent. That's when the dollar is strongest. Look at Warren Buffett. He is preparing for a bloodbath. 30% cash and equivalents of total assets. The highest, I believe, since 1990, but back then, the amount of money they had was negligible compared to now. So you can see this happened before the dot-com bubble, but before the dot-com bubble, they were only exposed 12% cash. 2008, 25% cash. Now, 30% cash. They're getting ready for a bloodbath. And so all of this points towards some big shit is about to go down, especially in light of this scenario where the Russians could be given their walking papers from Syria. And this means that, desperate times create desperate measures. And there's a distinct possibility that either, if this is whether it's Ukraine, elements of Ukraine, partisans, or neo-Nazis, or who knows who wants to start a war is going to do something like this. Maybe it's the CIA. We're not going to go down the InfoWars rabbit hole. There's plenty of people doing that. I'm just trying to give you all the facts. Russia currently continues to deploy, to have all of its nuclear forces, strategic forces, on constant alert, rolling alert, ICBMs, running drills today. This is crazy. You have Poland training its children now in elementary school how to shoot guns. Something I actually agree with. But isn't it surprising how here in Canada, where we are 61 billion fucking dollars in debt, these geniuses, 61 billion, these geniuses get the bright idea to spend 600 million, courtesy of the CCFR, by the way, over 3 years to confiscate all the semi-automatic rifles. But you know what? You know when they're going to give them back to us? They're going to give them back to us when they need us to use us as cannon fodder. And isn't it incredible how all of the reasons why they call for gun control suddenly evaporate when it's time to send your bitch ass off to war? Isn't that incredible? Absolutely incredible. So Poland is preparing for frickin' war, man. It's incredible. The Russians today, Putin made all kinds of statements about how they're mobilizing for war. Now, I should say that Department of Homeland Security said, hey, don't worry. You know, these are just normal drones. This completely clashes with what Trump just said. They said, we recognize the concern among many communities. We can continue to support the state and local authorities with advanced detection technology and support of law enforcement. Blah, 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 blah. We urge Congress to enact counter-UAS regulation when it reconvenes. Of course, they're always going to exploit these scenarios. I mean, I was saying that from the start. This was all just a ploy to ban drones. You know, with the whole DJI privacy security concerns. Well, this just kind of compounds on top of that. Anyways, there have been a limited number of visual sightings of drones over military facilities in Jersey and elsewhere, including within restricted airspace. Such sightings near or over DoD installations are not new, blah, 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 blah. And then they go on to say that these are all drones that are operating lawfully, okay, which completely contradicts everything that we know and that we've been hearing. Even Chuck Schumer is coming on. But look at this little grin that he has on, this little evil sneer that he has. Listen what he says.
We're here today because it's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's a drone.
It's a pop cultural reference. It's a joke. Look at the smile on his face. And this is the most boomer thing he's ever done. He's got some AliExpress $25 special that doesn't even have GPS, and immediately when you launch it, it flies into the wall and breaks. Somebody told him that this was a representation of the drones that we're talking about here, this little rinky-dink piece of crap. And he holds it up unironically.
And
Wow.
when it comes to drones, people in the New York area and all across the country have more questions than answers.
Now, this smacks of an agenda. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Go watch it. It smacks of an agenda. But if you have to watch one interview, you got to go and watch this. Gordon Chang reveals terrifying theory to explain mysterious drones. Comports everything that we've said thus far. And it's mainstream. All right? Kursk. North Korean prostitutes have been found in Kursk. It's an inside joke. Guys, yeah, NATO is still in Kursk. After, I don't know, how long has it been? Like half a year? The North Korean prostitute joke. Go watch our Christmas special. Okay, just go watch it. You'll get to know the crew that's behind the scenes here, and just show these videos some love. These lighter-hearted videos, which are, they have a little bit of fun sometime, but it's also, there's a message in here too. There's a message. It's kind of our take on A Christmas Carol, only it's, I guess I should have entitled it A Prepping Carol. But nobody watches these videos unless they're sensationalist, screaming, alarmist headlines, which is kind of tragic because that's the information you're actually going to need to ride out the SHA. They're just some people. They just want bad news every single day. Where's the news? You know, we'll post like a video that took weeks of research and, you know, cost us $10,000 to make. This ain't the news. I need more bad news. Dude, there's enough bad news to keep you busy for years. But just please, please, do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Actually do some prepping. Okay, I know it's hard. It sucks. We just want to be immune. This is all entertainment for some people. So H5N1, 61 cases in the United States. Did you hear about that in the news? No, you didn't. 65 cases, or 61 cases, I say 61, of H5N1 in the United States, and it's in the water supply everywhere. All the animals are getting it. Zoo animals are dying from it. Is this going to be like the doomsday virus that just kills everything? You know, I mean, it's possible, man. Like anything is possible at this point. This economy, I'm telling you, it makes no sense. And it's the longest, biggest bubble in history. That's the crazy part. And there's still people who think that it's going to go on for 4 years. But here's the thing. Somebody asked me today, they're like, you know, the Fed keeps continuously lowering interest rates, despite the fact that there's all this money around. Why are they doing this? Why do they feel the need to get... The reason why is because when the dominoes start to fall this time, they're not going to stop. And so they know that, and I haven't thought of a good analogy to explain it yet. Maybe something to do with flight. Guy McPherson used to say that, you know, like a plane, the only way to stay in the air is to continue moving forward, or something to that effect, with as a metaphor for collapse. I'm not sure exactly how to explain this, but if they take their foot off the gas at all, the whole thing can come crashing down very, very quickly. So the only thing that's going to save the United States is global conflict, and for people to continue to pour money into U.S. equities. Take a look at this. The pandemic. Okay? This is when everybody was freaking the hell out. The U.S. dollar was skyrocketing because people were looking for a safe haven, clean a shirt in a dirty laundry basket. Then it dipped, 2023. Then what has happened since? We're now approaching record highs. This is signaling that the shit's going to hit the fan. Now, it could have something to do with the axis of resistance failing to stave off Israel, the Israel arm of NATO. But I'm not sure, man. I just don't know. I mean, Israel is just acting with impunity in Syria. And Osama bin Laden's protege there, who's now in control of Syria, seems to have no problem with Israel bombing the shit out of anywhere they so choose, which tells you that he's just kind of a placeholder. And the whole demilitarization campaign, which really doesn't make a lot of sense if Israel is coordinating this with Turkey, because wouldn't Turkey want to commandeer these materials, or the Russians feeding the Israelis information so that they can detonate it, so that stuff doesn't fall into the wrong hands? I don't know. It's late, but I know that something's going on, and there's a nuclear bomb, and they're looking for it. And that's the only thing I can think of with respect to this. This whole elaborate thing, they wouldn't go to this great extent just to put more laws on drones. Like, it wouldn't make any sense. Is there going to be a Patriot Act 2 or 3.0 component to this? Abso-frickin-lutely there's going to be. Okay? And I think that we are going to see the Biden administration comment on this in the coming days, if they can give them enough drugs to read a script for a couple minutes, that is. A lot of other news, but I'm going to leave it there for today. we have our friend Jonathan Hollerman coming back on the channel to talk about some information with respect to Chinese transformers in the United States. Some new information has been brought to light that is incredibly concerning. And once again, this is going to be exclusive information. You're only going to hear it here. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, CanadianPreparedness.com. And we still do have a little bit of inventory of